What if what we call public opinion was just a manufactured narrative that makes it easier to convince people that if their views are different, then there's something wrong with that, or there's something wrong with them?
Spending is a tax. As soon as the government spends money, eventually it's a tax. Sometimes we put a direct tax on the people, sometimes we borrow the money, and sometimes we print the money.
Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth.
The Patrick Riggins Show. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show. You've made it to the 1 hour of logic and reason to help straighten out your week. The hour where everything makes sense, where you know the principles of freedom and liberty prevail. We don't make excuses. We don't let people slide. We hold everyone, especially ourselves, to the standard of the Constitution. In case you can't see the frequency readout of your DDS there in your broadcast band receiver, you're listening to the home of the Patrick Riggins Show and the Libertarian Loud House Radio Network on none other than the News Talk 98.7 WOKI here in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the music. Here we go. Yeah, I like that part. Thank you for tuning in with us again here today. We have a lot of stuff to get to. And this show might jump around a little this week. I've got about 5 hours of show and 1 hour in which to do it. So I'm trying to cram in as much as I can, hit as many points as I can before I run out of time. But don't worry. We'll post everything after the show today over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. You can also listen to the show again in the archives on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Just about all the past shows are up there as well, and I think there may be one or two from the very start, but the rest of them, they are up there. So, starting off the show this week, I have a quick Edward Snowden update that I want to get to, and he's come out with a statement, and I don't know if you've heard this or not. I want to read part of it, though, and I think it bears repeating if you have heard it. His statement contained within it, here's a little piece of it. He said, "The Fourth and Fifth Amendments to the Constitution of my country, being United States, Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and numerous statutes and treaties forbid such systems of massive, pervasive surveillance. While the U.S. Constitution marks these programs as illegal, my government argues that secret court rulings, which the world is not permitted to see, or even its citizens, I threw that in, somehow legitimize an illegal affair. These rulings simply corrupt the most basic notion of justice, that it must be seen to be done. The immoral cannot be made moral through the use of secret law." Now, jumping on down through the statement, we come to this part too, which I want to read. Quote, "The moral decision to tell the public about spying that affects all of us has been costly, but it was the right thing to do, and I have no regrets. I did not seek to enrich myself. I did not seek to sell U.S. secrets. I did not partner with any foreign government to guarantee my safety. Instead, I took what I knew to the public, so what affects all of us can be discussed by all of us in the light of day. And I asked the world for justice." Now, one of the last notes in this statement said, "This willingness by powerful states to act extra legally," which is outside the bounds of legality, "represents a threat to all of us and must not be allowed to succeed." Now, this is what I talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Snowden has given up so much. Let's just call it what it is. He's going through hell right now, stranded in an airport in Moscow. All of this to point out that our government has not only been violating our rights, but people's rights all around the world, in almost every country of the world. They're even working against governments that are supposedly our friends. What has happened to our country? If you look at us, we've become what we used to accuse the old USSR of being. We've become an oppressive state with strict governmental control of everybody and everything. I bet you can't sit there and name 5 things in your life that aren't either regulated or have the government involved in some way. I guess the question I'm asking is, how much longer are we going to tolerate this injustice? Not just of Mr. Snowden, but of us. How much longer do we sit idly by and allow our rights and our freedoms to be trampled under the boot of the government? Now, in response to Mr. Snowden's statement, White House spokesman Jay Carney stated, quote, providing a propaganda platform for Mr. Snowden runs counter to the Russian government's previous declarations of Russia's neutrality. It's also incompatible with Russian assurances that they do not want Mr. Snowden to further damage U.S. interests. Well, it's way too late for that, Mr. Carney. The United States government is in damage control with our allies, and at the same time trying to divert the attention of the American public with little things like, well, immigration or even Trayvon Martin, gay marriage, whatever it can do in order to make you forget it's spying on you. Mr. Carney also renewed a U.S. call on Russia to expel Mr. Snowden so that he could be returned to American soil to face trial for leaking U.S. national security secrets. Now, what he leaked was information that we needed to know. Now, if that's deemed to be a national security secret, then the implication is our government is actively working against us, the citizens, which is their boss. We're the boss of them. They're our employees. In the same vein, they're violating the Constitution, and then they're trying to declare it a state secret. Just by doing that, it tells us they knew exactly what they're doing. They knew it was unconstitutional, and that's technically illegal, no matter what legislation Congress has passed. And this whole garbage about this countering assertions that Russia, or by Russia, that they are going to remain neutral. Well, Russia is remaining neutral. They aren't turning him over, which would be taking the U.S. government side, and they aren't encouraging him to continue releasing information, which would be taking the side of the American citizens. Preferably, I'd like them to take this side. So they are remaining neutral. But much like Democrats and liberals like to contend, if you aren't taking their side, then you aren't compromising, you aren't agreeing to, quote, common sense solutions, or you're not remaining neutral. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and to drive this point home before the end of the segment here, I want to play a couple of clips from my show here from about 2 weeks ago. Well, is it going to go? Oh, we're going to try that again, Jay. Did it? He's getting nothing. Oh, don't you love live radio? I could have sworn I had that plugged into my laptop. Oh, well, we'll get that sorted out. Huh? Did you? No, he's Jay sitting in there going, don't talk to me. Huh, well, I guess the laptop doesn't like the Patrick Riggin show, so it's not going to play my clip. But what I was talking about on there, if you want that clip, go to youtube.com/Patrick Riggin show. And it was about a week ago or 2 weeks ago that I talked about this. And you can just look up the part on Edward Snowden. But basically what it is this man has given up everything. He's given up his life as he knew it. He's given up, he was living in Hawaii. He gave up that, gave up his job, gave up his girlfriend, went on the run. he can no longer come back to the United States, ever. So he's given up all this, and yet we're going to let all that go to waste because we don't want to be bothered with having to think about our government is spying on us. Because if we think in that way, now we have to do something about it, which flies in the face of me being able to sit around and watch TV all day and just not having to worry with the fact the government's monitoring everything I'm doing. In fact, we're going to have, if I get to it, we got a couple more stories on that very thing this week, or on this show that's been happening this week. But we're up on the first segment, or into the first segment, up on the first break here on the Patrick Riggins Show. When we come back, I'll see if I can get my clips running. If I can't, oh well, I can fill the time. I've got plenty to talk about, plenty to say. Here on the Patrick Riggins Show on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and News Talk 98.7 WOKI. And welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Reaching back into the 90s for a song from a band called the Toadies. And Jay likes that song as well. Speaking of Jay, I promised him when we came back I would tell everyone that the reason the clip didn't play the last segment was Patrick's fault.
Thank you very much.
Just to clarify that. They have a little thing in the studio here you can plug into a laptop and it feeds the board in Jay's room. You plug the headphone output of your laptop into that, and then you just play whatever you want off the laptop, and he feeds it through the board and out onto the air. So usually I just come right here and plug it in. Came in today. Well, there's another plug laying there, so I plugged that one in, and apparently that's the wrong one. So
now, if you really wanted to get on the conspiracy theory kick, it could be because you were about to talk about Snowden.
That's what it is.
The government conspired to put another cord in there.
They stuck that cord in there. I bet they paid Phil off.
Might be.
Phil or Halloran. They paid one of them off to put that in here and trip up Patrick.
You know, I did see a black helicopter hovering overhead.
Was there? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't see Phil walking around in here, but he could sneak in. So, yeah. No, Phil was not down here. Don't call Phil on Monday.
It was a SEAL team.
It was SEAL Team 6.5. They're even more secret than the 6, SEAL Team 6. All right. Oh, this segment, I guess we should get into it here. You know, I want to just talk about something real quick. It's kind of esoteric, but I want to talk about it here. It's all this talk about government. Government's doing this. Government is trying to force Obamacare on us. Government switching out my feeds for my laptop. You know, you can't trust government, even though the president says you can, when I think he really means you should. Not that you can trust government, that you should. That's what he really means. Because, you know, it helps government get away with more if you trust it. You see, if you trust it, then you'll take its word that you need to give up freedom and liberty in order for it to protect you. Something a lot of Americans want, but in reality, government can't deliver. Security, that is. But anyway, with all this talk about government, have you really thought exactly what government really is? What is this thing called government? It's an abstract thing. It really doesn't exist except in our minds. It's like a corporation. It's nothing. Government is an agreement among people. If there are 5 of us and we all agree that I'm going to act for us in some capacity, then that's our agreement. It doesn't create some super being called government that no one can restrain. It's still just people. So all these congressional representatives, all these people in the administration who say, well, you know, you can't roll back Obamacare and, you know, you can't reduce taxes. This whatever government program is too hard to kill. That's all bullcrap. All you need to do is vote to kill it. And besides, if you aren't abiding by the Constitution, you shouldn't be able to do it anyway. The states and the people, and ultimately the people, don't have to listen to the federal government if it's acting outside the Constitution. That's a little thing called nullification. We covered that on this show. And we're going to cover it a lot more in debt on a future debt. Boy, I can't speak. We're going to copy it a lot more in depth in our future show. But real quickly, let me read you something from the Constitution, that crazy document we're supposed to be going by. Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution states, quote, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made, under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to be contrary notwithstanding." And what that is, that's the supremacy clause. But notice what it states. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof. Thereof what? The Constitution. The laws of the United States, laws passed by Congress. If these laws are made in pursuance of the Constitution, that meaning carrying out the Constitution. So if a law is made that doesn't carry out the Constitution, then it isn't the supreme law of the land. You see how that works? If Congress passes a law carrying out the Constitution, meaning it works, it passes the test that this law is allowed by the Constitution. So somewhere in that document, it will say, Congress can do this. If it says that, then it is the supreme law of the land. But the opposite is also true. If Congress passed a law that doesn't pass the test that this law is allowed by the Constitution, if it isn't in that document, then the reverse is, the opposite's also true. It isn't the supreme law of the land. Now, kind of drive this point home, if it's spelled out, Congress can do something in the Constitution, then the law applies to everybody. If it isn't spelled out, then Congress can pass the law, but no one really has to pay it any attention. Not the states and certainly not the people. If Congress wants to be able to do something not in the Constitution, then there's a way for us to allow it. We amend it. We specifically say Congress can do this thing they're asking permission to do. This whole business of having to go to the Supreme Court to determine whether something is allowed is ludicrous. Does it say it in the Constitution? No? Then it's not allowed, plain and simple. That is a power reserved to the states and ultimately to the people. That's the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's the text of that amendment. What it's saying is, powers not listed or the states. If the states don't address it, then it's us. But we have this big power grab by the federal government. These people, that's the federal government. Remember, that's really what government is. It's a group of people. So we have these people who are acting outside the rules we laid down that they have to follow. And when we catch them breaking the rules, we're told, hey, it's okay. We told ourselves we could do it. So, next time I'm caught speeding, can I say, hey, it's okay. I told myself I could do it. I decided I didn't want to follow that law, so I voted with myself and agreed that it was okay to break it. Doesn't matter whether the rules say I can decide that for myself or not, or even if I have that authority. Well, I did it anyway. It's the same situation with the government. We decided we could spy on you. The Constitution doesn't allow it. Well, that's okay. We decided it was okay. We gave ourselves permission to break the rules that you, the American citizens, gave us. Interestingly enough, the rules we swear to uphold and defend. We didn't like one aspect of them, so we just decided not to abide by them. And we, the citizens, are not supposed to be offended by this. And apparently we're not. We aren't demanding Congress stop all of this. We aren't ringing the phones off the hook in Washington screaming at our representatives. Polls show only 37% of Americans think Obamacare is a good idea. 49% say it's a bad idea. But are those 49% calling their representatives? Are they showing up at town hall meetings and demanding answers, demanding their congressional representatives repeal this unconstitutional law? And if you don't know the answer, it's no. And, you may ask, Patrick, how can you be so sure? Because if those 49% were all calling their representatives, then Obamacare will be repealed within the week. While we're talking about Mr. Snowden, 55% of Americans think of Edward Snowden as a whistleblower. Just 34% say he's a traitor. Yet our government is still pursuing him. So if those 55% were calling Washington, demanding that they stop screwing him over, demand the government stop all spying immediately, we'd be done, no problem. But, I'm not stupid. It's not going to happen. This is why I push and scream and almost literally beg you to call your people in Congress. If you aren't letting them know you're mad, then they figure they can just do whatever they want. Just look at the whole IRS scandal and the spying scandal. They're counting on you to not remember anything they've done when election time rolls around. And unfortunately, that's what happens. Or if you do remember it, you just vote your party. That's all that matters. Whether or not this party person is voting away your rights and liberties. And pretty much they all are. That doesn't matter. What matters is get that Democrat or Republican into office. That's what's important. And that, unfortunately, is what is on too many people's minds. All right, we're up on the half-hour break already here on the Patrick Regan Show, just blowing along through here. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some more on this spying thing and the Prime Minister from Luxembourg, and if we get to it, we'll talk about me preaching too much. So when we come back here on the Patrick Regan Show, stay with us. Welcome back to the Patrick Regan Show. Leading in with something a little more calming after that last segment. But don't worry, I'll get worked up again. All right. Starting out here, what I want to get into, and I kind of hammer this spying thing quite a bit because it is so darn important. Just about anything else pales in comparison to what's going on right here. As I said, a couple of, I'm trying to place my words here so I don't get beeped. What I want you to remember is there's going to be a lot of stories coming out, things that people, namely the government, wants you to pay attention to because it doesn't want you thinking about what it's doing. And what it's doing is just blatantly unconstitutional. It's something we used to make fun of, the communist countries doing this sort of thing. To kind of hit this point again this week, and I put this up on Facebook, but I wanted to talk about it on our show as well. There's a story that ran in the UK Guardian, which seems to be where you have to get the news nowadays. And it ran on Thursday, and it points out just how very important what Edward Snowden is doing to make you aware of what's been happening. The article begins with, Microsoft has collaborated closely with U.S. intelligence services to allow users' communications to be intercepted, including helping the National Security Agency, that's the NSA, to circumvent the company's own encryption, according to top-secret documents obtained by The Guardian. These files who were provided by who? Edward Snowden, illustrate the scale of cooperation between Silicon Valley and the intelligence agencies over the last 3 years. They also shed new light on the workings of the top-secret PRISM program, which was disclosed by The Guardian and the Washington Post last month. The documents show that Microsoft helped the NSA to circumvent its encryption to address concerns that the agency would be unable to intercept web chats on the new Outlook.com portal. The documents also show that the agency already had pre-encryption stage access. Before you could encrypt it, they had access to email on Outlook.com, including Hotmail. Microsoft also worked with the FBI this year to allow the NSA easier access via PRISM to its cloud storage service, SkyDrive, which now has more than 250 million users worldwide. There's no excuse for you being exposed to this. This is mainly a political show, but even I warned you about storing anything in these so-called cloud storage services. All you've been doing is putting everything in one place for the government to look at. You've made it easier for them not to have to run all over trying to build your profile. When you store your stuff on these cloud services, you put it all together for them. But anyway, back to the article. Microsoft also worked with the FBI's Data Intercept Unit to, quote, understand potential issues with a feature in Outlook.com that allows users to create email aliases. In July last year, 9 months after Microsoft bought Skype, the NSA boasted that a new capability had tripled the amount of Skype video calls being collected through PRISM. Material collected through PRISM is routinely shared with the FBI and CIA, with one NSA document describing the program as a, quote, team sport. Now, in a statement, Microsoft said, when we upgrade or update products, we aren't absolved from the need to comply with existing or future lawful demands. The company reiterated its argument that it provides customer data only in response to government demands, and we only ever comply with orders for requests about specific accounts or identifiers. So they only provide customer data in response to government demands. But they're admitting they're installing back doors in their software to allow it, even before the company is asked to provide anything. If you didn't catch that, here's part of that quote again. When we upgrade or update products, we aren't absolved from the need to comply with existing or future lawful demands. That's called installing a backdoor to get your data. Now, the article continues, since PRISM's existence became public, Microsoft and the other companies listed on the NSA documents as providers have denied all knowledge of the program and insisted that the intelligence agencies do not have backdoors into their systems. So despite what you're hearing or reading, don't look at the evidence from the very agency using these backdoors in this software. We don't do that, no matter what the NSA says. And Microsoft's latest marketing campaign, launched in April, emphasizes its commitment to privacy with the slogan, "Your privacy is our priority." Similarly, Skype's privacy policy states Skype is committed to respecting your privacy and the confidentiality of your personal data, traffic data, and communications content. But an internal new NSA newsletter, marked top secret, suggests the cooperation between the intelligence community and the companies is deep and ongoing. Now, the latest documents come from the NSA's Special Source Operations Division, and that's described by Edward Snowden as the crown jewel of the agency. It's responsible for all the programs aimed at U.S. communication systems through corporate partnerships such as PRISM. The files show that the NSA became concerned about the interception of encrypted chats on Microsoft's Outlook.com portal from the moment the company began testing the service in July of last year. The article also says within 5 months, the documents explain, Microsoft and the FBI had come up with a solution that allowed the NSA to circumvent encryption on Outlook.com chats. A newsletter entry dated 26th of December 2012 states, Microsoft, working with the FBI, developed a surveillance capability to deal with the issue. These solutions were successfully tested and went live 12th of December 2012. 2 months later, in February of this year, Microsoft officially launched the Outlook.com portal. Another newsletter entry stated that the NSA already had pre-encryption access to Outlook email. For Prism collection against Hotmail Live and Outlook.com emails will be unaffected because Prism collects this information prior to encryption. That was also noted in this memo. This is just amazing what is going on here. The NSA is just literally monitoring just about every part of your life. And as I said, if you aren't calling your congressional representatives and demanding a stop to all this, it is just going to continue to expand. Sitting around doing nothing but complaining is not effective at all. You have to have your voice heard. Our government's running around here violating the rights of virtually everyone on the planet, but Edward Snowden's the bad guy. He's the traitor, not our government. And what's amazing to me, as I played you clips just last week, liberals, conservatives, and even libertarians, John Stossel, I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with the NSA spying on me. It's just amazing. If you want to hear that, go to our YouTube channel, listen to last week's show. You'll hear the quotes from him and actually Judge Napolitano smacking him down where he's wrong. These are the kind of things we have to get upset about. You have to let your congressional representatives know this is not acceptable. All right, we're up on the last break of the Patrick Regan Show already. We're just rolling along here. When we come back, we'll have a couple of more things. Well, we'll throw the papers on the floor and see which one lands on the top, and we'll go with that story. So, when we come back here on the Patrick Regan Show, join us in a little bit. All right. We're back here on the Patrick Regan Show. I was going to let that song run a little bit. It's called You're a Liar by Slash. So, this is an appropriate song for our government. Yeah, it's too far into the song. Well, no, here it comes. All my faith's been wasted, and I don't need you to save me anymore. What a good song for this show. All right. This last segment, it's kind of short, but I want to get to this story real quick. Luxembourg's Prime Minister, Jean-Claude, and I believe this is Juncker, officially announced he'd resign following what? Oh, it's a spying scandal involving illegal phone taps and other illicit activities. The announcement comes as Juncker's junior coalition partner called for the dissolution of the House in early parliamentary elections. Now, his departure follows allegations the country's security services abused their power under his watch, including illegally bugging politicians, purchasing cars for private use, and taking payments and favors in return for access to local officials from 2003 to 2009. The report commissioned by Luxembourg's parliament into the matter determined that Juncker failed to rein in the agency despite it being under his auspices. The July 5th document further said that the outgoing prime minister was politically responsible for failing to inform the Parliamentary Committee of Control or Justice authorities about the Luxembourg State Intelligence Service's alleged illegalities. This report was commissioned by Luxembourg Weekly newspaper after they had published a secretly taped conversation between Juncker and the head of the State Intelligence Service at the time, which is Marco, I believe it's Milly or Mill, could be either one. On the recording, Mill revealed that his staff had secretly recorded a conversation involving the country's Grand Duke, which is the monarchical head of state, and that the sovereign was in regular contact with Britain's secret intelligence service. all of this sounds a lot like our NSA and our CIA. They're both handling spying, but CIA, of course, and I'm sure the NSA does as well. They run businesses to fund things we shouldn't be doing in the first place. The prime minister initially refused to step down, though, claiming he should not be expected to resign over the alleged wrongdoing of a few intelligence agencies. This is just, you could cut this out of Obama's excuses. Just paste it right into this. He told the parliament, the intelligence service was not my top priority. So you see, just like our president, it's not his fault, but he can't be expected to know what's going on. And if he's caught violating the Constitution, well, then it's our fault anyway. Nothing is his or the government's fault, being President Obama. As the outgoing prime minister admitted, the intelligence service scandal left him no other choice than to hand in the government's resignation. Other European leaders are increasingly being scrutinized for the alleged role in sweeping surveillance activities. So at least this guy has the decency and the honor to resign when this sort of thing happens. Am I calling for President Obama's resignation? Not really, but I'm just pointing out that someone's paying the price for all this, and no one's paying the price here in the United States. In fact, Edward Snowden's paying the price, and we're paying the price because we're getting told it's none of our dang business, and shut your mouth, do your job, pay your taxes, and just take what's given to you. But anyway, getting back to the article, UK Foreign Secretary William Hague, who oversees the government communications headquarters, he recently came under fire for the agency's Tempora surveillance program, as well as its collusion with the United States National Security Agency's sweeping spying program. Last week, the European Union began investigating whether Britain had broken EU law following reports it had tapped international phone traffic and shared vast amounts of personal data with the United States. Also in Germany, where the U.S. reportedly combs through 500 million German phone calls, emails, and text messages on a daily basis, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden recently accused the political leadership of being in bed with the NSA. What all this points out is just how far-reaching this is. And it's up to us to fix this. Yes, it's all over the world. But we have to take the lead on this issue because, and we as in the citizens of this country, the world looks to us for leadership. If we aren't concerned enough to make the changes needed to fix this in our government, then how can anyone else in the world derive any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're talking, I knew it's coming up. Look, in a nutshell, we need to fix this NSA problem. If not for us, for the rest of the world. We're at the end of the program here on the Patrick Regan Show. If you want to know more about us, check us on Facebook, facebook.com/Patrick Regan Show. Also the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Patrick Regan Show. Thank you again for listening, and be sure and join me next Saturday afternoon at 4. We'll be fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Regan Show.